there are some frames over there that have already got Oasis in, but there's a couple that haven't, so you might end up having something like this. So basically, you just grab the blocks of Oasis and you cut them down into shape, okay, and put them in there as it is. If you're lucky enough to finish first and get one of the ones that have already got Oasis in, what you have to do is, so you don't get the holes, turn it upside down. Okay, so just turn it upside down and push it back in, and then you'll end up without any holes in the cross. Now, you do have to make sure that every bit you do is taped. So every section that you sort of cut, make sure that it's taped with the Oasis tape. Okay? So then... Oh yeah, no, I'll put some notes on the board for you as well, like some key points for it. So you're cutting off a little bit of Oasis tape, similar to the wreath you've just done, and that is going to be taped with a crisscross going around, yeah? One either side, make sure you're going all the way around when you do it. Now, the basing is going to be pretty similar to what you've done on the wreath and your posy pads and things like that. So it's building your profile again. But we're going to do a foliage edge on this rather than a ribbon edge. So there's a bag of mixed cut foliage over there that we're going to be using. And with this is basically, I'd say a little bit less time consuming than the ribboning, I think. So you're going to use short stems of foliage, leave the stem so there's enough to go in, but you don't want stems coming out the other side. There isn't a lot of Oasis to work with. So you have to make sure you're quite decisive when you put it in. So just above the plastic, you push the stem in so that the foliage rests on top of the plastic, yeah? Now you can go around with the same foliage or you can do different mixed foliages. It's completely up to you. I do think it's nice to sort of do a sort of mixture, really. I think it adds some nice textures. But whichever one you decide to do, whether it's one type, two types, whichever, once you've gone all the way along, you have to go back a second time just to make sure that the foliage is nice and thick and isn't going to sort of fall out or anything, yeah? So once you've got your line going around, you might decide that you're going to do your second line with a different type. So with this sits just on top of the foliage that you've already put in. If you've gone for one type before, do try to do like a mixture of bits and pieces. There's loads, you've got box, you've got level leaf, there's little bits of pistache in there, lots of bits. So, but you have to go on top of it so that you get that sort of thicker line of foliage. Okay? And you're going to be aiming everything in sort of straight because you want it resting just above the plastic. You don't want to be taking up any of your space on your Oasis up here, yeah? So a nice thick line of foliage going all the way down. A minimum of sort of two types really to add some texture to it. And then your basing it is exactly the same as what you've done with the wreath. You need to create that nice dome effect, yeah? So smaller headed flowers down at the bottom, and they go in so they sit just above your foliage, so they're sort of resting on the foliage as like a cushion. All the way along. Now again, like your wreath, you're best to go all the way around the shape of your cross first. Okay, then you're going to go to your second. So that side's going to be done as well. So let me just. Broken stems. Okay, so you've got that either side. Now you're going to keep your big one for your focal. Yeah, that's going to go in your middle. And then you want to sort of go for sort of medium sort of size heads to fill in the sides. I always think it's easier to do the sides first on this, just because then you sort of have an idea as to what sort of, whether you can use like medium or large heads in the top. So doing the two sides,
You've only ever done it, is it?
Well, it's quite a small gap, isn't it, really? So you can get away without having to use too large a head in the centre. But, I mean, they are good because they do look like nice and full, and you can get that real sort of dome shape with it. Yeah? So do you see there how it's lifting up? So again, like the wreath, it's like you can almost sort of cup it with your hand. You have to have the stages going up and down the whole way across, yeah? Do your outside line first, and then do your inside lines going around first, because then depending on like the size heads, it doesn't really matter if they're not the largest heads for the centre, because the middle isn't that big, yeah? It's a bit of a trick of the trade there, yeah? So I'm going to leave it at that stage, and then I'm going to demonstrate a teardrop shaped spray on the cross. But I think it'll be good for everybody to be sort of like facing the cross and stuff before I go on to the spray, okay?